Good morning, Quasar Markets Live. I hope everyone is having a great day here. Just going to get my screens a little bit more arranged here the way they make sense. Sorry about that. Drop it. There we go. Now we're talking. Okay, so we had a CPI data, as you can see across the bottom of the screen, come across today, leading the markets up in a nice little move here to the upside. Did I not have my screen? Give me 1 second here. Oh, there it is. I just need to do this. Sorry. Let's get. Oh, my screen is up there. Never mind. As we can see here, after the market CPI data came out, CPI came in a little bit lighter than expected on core CPI, right at estimates when it came to the overall number. But markets seem to like that news. And I think it's a combination of that news. And as I spoke about bank earnings, which have been really good so far this morning, and we'll get further into those. But what we want to take a look at, again, we always talk about it. Stephen Flanagan will be in later this morning with me at 10 o'clock. But not to steal his thunder, but money does move first. And you can see that immediate drop at 8:30 on the DXY. The Dixie here went from 109.1 and dropped way down from there. Good morning, Ron. I hope you're doing well, my friend. But definitely moving, down quickly. Tried to rebound a little bit, but again, now dropping right back down around this 1086 area. And what we also see is that U.S. Treasuries are moving to the downside too, really led by the 10-year here down about 2.5%. So, we could see a nice little rally today based on this because, the market's what we got is what? Dollars cheaper, so not as good idea to leave money in money markets right now or CDs as rates have dropped here. And again, the DXY goes down, so maybe that gives, and we've seen an immediate move on Bitcoin, gold trying to run to 2,700 now. Silver got above the 30 handle, so we're seeing this sort of easing up on DXY have an immediate effect across the markets in general. We have talked about that a lot here. That's a big thing you should be watching. One of the first things you should look at when you start to see the market move one way or the other is this being led by, money moving first, the currencies, Forex, and what's going on with our interest rates right now, right? Those tend to be the big things. So if we continue to look at commodities in general, natural gas now really breaking to the upside. When I had put in, I have a banner here that I'm about to put up that's going to say how it had gotten back above 411 this morning when I put this together, maybe, a half hour ago, but now up, it just broke 415 and trying to move back to the upside here, up 1.12%. Part of that is, again, we've seen the cold, take over most of the north here. And and just bad weather. So, and with that, like I said, we see gold trying to make a move back up towards about 2,700 here. We know that has been a big resistance spot for it. And as I mentioned, good to see silver get back above 30 here. Silver has had trouble at this point. It is battling right now with the 50-day MA here. So we'll look to see if it can break that 50-day MA. Silver could get interesting at that point for a run back up towards 33 because you would have the 200-day MA that it just broke and has sort of started to hold above over the last week or so. And now if it can break that 50, giving you the confirmation on a lower time frame, could be a good spot for an entry there. WTI and Brent. One thing I noticed there is, first of all, WTI. So there are obviously some conditions here in the U.S. are causing WTI to rise at a higher rate than Brent. Brent, as we know, is mostly out of the North Seas, whereas WTI is the oil out of Texas. And they do run at different rates. But what I've noticed, and I'll try to get a hold of Big Beat, he's my man when it comes to oil for sure, and see what maybe is causing that. I haven't noticed if weather in Texas, or I haven't seen anything specifically that had come out that would be causing this in the news. So that's why I said I sort of have to figure out if there is something behind it. And if I do, I'll let you know, although I do have a little article here. Let's see if they mention anything here. Not really. Mentions weather a little bit and stuff, but not really. So, but the bigger part is all of the commodities seem to be rising up so far. Another thing to point out again, one of the first things we look at are our Spider Select funds. They break the S&P down into 11 sectors, and we do see that all 11 sectors are moving up tremendously here, being led on two fronts. Consumer discretionary up about 2.22% in pre-trading, and then the financial sector. So let's get into the financial sector. I had mentioned, we've talked a little bit this week, earnings, right? And if you look at today's earnings here coming across your screen, we have already had a lot of these come in, but you have BK, Bank of Mellon, New York, Wells Fargo, JP Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs, Citigroup, BlackRock, and others, all with earnings this morning, and they have in general come in pretty well. And if we look at the banking sector, I do have that as broken down here. We see raises, JP Morgan up about 1.72% here this morning. Was up even a little higher, has pulled back a little bit here. And we do know that, so sitting at 251.87, 251.87. And we know it's all-time high, 254. So we'll see, do they actually get above that here on their news? And I did have this other place, but it's just easy to pull it up here. As you can see, their EPS came in at $4.81. It was estimated by the market to come in about 4.09. So a nice 18% almost beat there. And they had a beat on revenue. We'll break down JP Morgan a little bit more in their numbers in a bit here. But again, strong news there. The big thing that I took away, again, you guys, I mentioned it yesterday. I talked about it a lot. I like to hear what Jamie Dimon has to say in general. One of the bigger takeaways was that he said that, the resiliency, he saw that the American consumer and America in general, the economy has been resilient, and that we've held up, that consumer spending is pretty good still, that businesses are optimistic in general about what's coming in the future with a sort of pro-growth administration coming in. So again, I think the takeaway for me, even more so than their nice earnings, was his comments in general. And like I said, we'll go through them a little bit more after this. Bank of America up about 3%, and they did not do their earnings today. Wells Fargo was another one, though, that did, up 5%. What's interesting there is they actually had a revenue miss, but a nice win on the EPS side. So their EPS came in about 6% higher than expected, and they did have a slight overall revenue miss, but Wells Fargo still moving up on that news. Again, Goldman Sachs with a 45% beat on their EPS, expected to come in at 8.2, came in at $11.95 a share, and a 12% beat on overall revenue. So again, financial sector, I think it's going to have the market running. I think we see some, animal spirits running around again today. Bulls definitely look to have it in the run right now. And they haven't had a good run, the Bulls, lately. So I think they could try to take this and go with it. And again, banking definitely leading the way. The other sort of sector that you have to keep an eye on today is the quantum computer section. And we've talked about this. I've talked about this a few times here over the last week or so. When they dropped 50% after Jensen Huang, right, the CEO of NVIDIA, said the time frame for sort of quantum computing to really hit would be about a 15 to 30-year time frame. That caused stocks like Rigetti and Quantum, IONQ, others to drop, 50%. And I said I wouldn't be buying them for a long-term hold. I'd be buying them looking for spikes like what we just saw. I would be selling into that strength today on some of these stocks. Again, some of the big winners there were IONQ, which is IONQ, up about 8.78% here. Rigetti, RGTI, up even more, up 50% yesterday after the news, up another 16 here today. So while these have room to run, again, my philosophy on these, they still run at extremely negative EPSs. If you look last quarter, which ended, which reported it in November on Rigetti, they EPS was negative 8 cents per share. So, and only on 3.2 million or 2.38 million on revenue. So these companies aren't making a lot of money right now. I do think it's important to point that out. So that's why we see these huge moves one way or another on it. Yeah, and you just got to be watching what's going on there, because it definitely, these things, as we saw here, spiked up to 21. Like I said, it took a 50% even more pull down back to $6. It took a 50% pull back to that 12 here, and then even further from there. So I do think they're good plays. Those that have been following Big Beat for, his money net days, and even before then, he has done that a lot with, space and some of the other lunar, some of the space things that were sort of, again, weren't making any money yet. There's a lot of promise in them, a lot of hype. And when we see them pump, you hold them when they're down low, and then, you buy them on dips, and then you hold them for those spikes, sell into that buying pressure. I would be looking at it. I was kind of looking to see if there's a level like on Rigetti. For me, I would be looking at this $12 level as being a real strong place. I mean, personally, I would be taking, if I had been holding this, I would be taking some profits already, since it's up, close to 60-65%. But I would hold a little bit here maybe and look for a run to 12, see if it can get back here towards this 12 area. But definitely a good moves there. Again, you're just going to see the hype move one way or the other. Looking at the cryptocurrency market this morning, everybody should be happy there. Bitcoin, nice jump up. It had moved above 29,000, now settling in right around 28,000, right around 28,900 or so right now. Did break above that 50-day MA that I talked about yesterday, so happy to see that. And now the resistance I'm sort of looking at here comes in the 100,000 range, 100/149. Again, anybody that bought in on those dips down at 90, 89,000, congratulations, great trade. Again, I would be looking to sell into some of this pressure. Could we run back up here and set new highs? You could, but most likely based, again, what we do here is we base it on the past. And in the past, what we can see is this area right here, right? You can just see how we struggled between November 22nd all the way, through to break through that. We've had two runs through it, but at about that 100, 1,500 area, you really start to run into, general resistance. So again, I hold the majority of my Bitcoin long term. It will be held, long term. But the part that I do trade, I will be looking to put in some sell orders today. Everybody knows I did buy when it got down around the 94 level, so I didn't wait all the way down to that 89. I bought around 94. I will be looking to sell into that pressure today. And in fact, I've put some of the orders in already. For alts, Ripple, another one that I'd be looking to sell into this rip right here. Ripple just hit 285 again. It's, it hit 290 earlier in the year back in December, but it struggled, came all the way back down to $2. Again, those of you holding Ripple, and I will tell everybody another coin that I do hold is Ripple from a while ago. I would look to sell into this pressure again. I think you'll have trouble making that 290 and holding above it. So that was one I was looking at there. If you're looking for a continuation trade, I do like Solana for a continuation trade here. It did break that 194.90. I think it was 194.88 I was looking for. It did break that. It's holding above it so far. If we can get a bounce here off of VWAP, you could have a nice entry to the upside on Solana. And that was really the only main things I saw when it came to the crypto market. Tick so far, again, positive about 344, and what a difference a day makes. Today, we're looking at the advanced decline right now up at 35.53. Yesterday, we were negative about 2,700 going into the open, and it jumped up to like 3,600 or 3,500 yesterday on that. VIX coming down tremendously. Again, we talked about that, right? When you see the VIX up in that 21, 22 area, it's a good time to short the VIX. Drop down here to 17. Again, I'd be getting out of that trade here now. As you can see, you tend to have support here right around that 1650 level. So be careful there if that's a trade you're in on. QQQ, the NASDAQ looking to open up about 1.6%. It made a good run yesterday to try to climb back up in, and to close in the green, came real close to it. And SPY actually, which is up 1.38% here this morning, was able to regain and open it at, or close at a positive yesterday. So we did see ourselves climb our way back in after the morning struggles and after PPI data came out. I do want to point out we still do have more economic data on tap for today. And it's Empire Manufacturing Survey that will be coming out that we're going to want to keep an eye on. U.S. Nope, that's the only one today. Yeah, just the Empire Manufacturing Survey. So we'll be keeping an eye out for that. And we'll see what we get here in the next 13 minutes. Do have a full day today. We have Stephen Flanagan, like I said, our man on at 10 o'clock to come talk currencies. And then I have a new guest, Todd Horowitz from Bubba Trading. Ron, that will be in at 11 o'clock. We'll be going back live at 11 o'clock with that interview, a longtime veteran trader on the CBOE. And just very excited to have him in to talk today about the markets, about option trading, and about his company, BubbaTrading.com. So come back at 11 for that. What I look at there, Ron, is advanceddecline.u. It is U.S. stocks. So the one I have here is all U.S. stocks that are advancing and declining. So that's the ticker I use. It looks like it might be USI maybe here, but on TradingView, it comes up as U.S. stocks. I do keep a few of them up here. I actually keep this one is the New York Stock Exchange advanced decline. Right now, that's running at 1378 to the upside. So I keep a few, and this is NASDAQ, which is 770. So you can see that they make up about 2,000 of them. But those are the ones that I keep up personally, are all three of them, so that I can see, is tech moving, is this New York Stock Exchange moving, which one's moving most, and then tick.us for the general, which is the US tick. Again, tells you in any given moment, are more people buying or selling? Great question there, Ron. Thank you for that. RUT is looking to open to the upside here today. Again, this is the one that I talked about the last couple of days, right? I liked the small market caps here. I do like them to make a move up today. I'm looking forward to make a run towards that 2,300 area. So that's what I'm looking at there. As we look at the Mag 7 so far this morning, again, nice little day there. They all took a beating yesterday, but NVIDIA trying to make a run back up about 1.5% here so far this morning. Amazon up about 2%. Tesla up 3.28. Speaking of Tesla, news we have to talk about, obviously. Let me get the article because I don't want to give any false information on it. Was that the SEC is suing Elon Musk. It has to do with him not disclosing purchases of Twitter back when it was Twitter before he bought it. And they say that he basically underpaid about $150 million at least on those purchases because of not disclosing that. So I will say it is a sort of older case, but definitely will be in the news. Second thing we definitely need to talk about when it comes to social media is TikTok ban, right? It does look like the TikTok ban is going to go through. And what the talk is there. Looks like, did I? freeze here. Hold it 1 second. Sorry about that, everybody. It looked like I had frozen up there for a second. Yeah, thanks, Ron. That's what I realized it after 1 second. Let me get us back up to the pace here and share my screen. There we go. That seems to be what's causing it to freeze. Okay, it does look like I am back up and going here. So I do apologize for those technical difficulties. I will be back at the home office tomorrow, so we should not have any problems after that. Sorry about that, everybody. Okay, so now I wanted to go through these. And let's take a look at the pre-market movers here. And we can see that Builders First again, which had a big day yesterday, moving to the upside here this morning, up about another 5.8%. Seeing Teradyne up 5.7%. BlackRock, another one of the financial service companies that posted better than expected earnings, and just keeps on killing it. Moving up here today, like I talked about too, a lot of them, Wells Fargo up 4.89%, Bank of New York Mellon 4.49%, all of those, Citigroup up 4.22%. So all of these, Goldman Sachs, are companies that reported earnings today, banks, and they are still moving the market up. Home builders look like they are continuing to move up too. I do want to take a quick look and see. Yeah, so home builders definitely moving back up. Also, we see DR Horton moving up. Let's check Lennar. Lennar up again too. So some of the home builders are moving up, and I do think they have a little bit more room to run here. Never mind trying to close the gap that started back here in mid-December, but they could try to rise up. Their next big resistance here on Lennar is about 140.28. So not a bad one to take a look at there too. Home builders today, quantum computing stocks, and financial service sector all on fire. But again, if we look here, all 11 of the Spider Select funds that cover the 11 sectors of the S&P, they are all moving to the upside here today. Overseas, there was some overseas data too. Over in the UK, inflation was a little bit lower than expected. Their CPI came in at 2.5, down a little bit. That is putting a little of the pressure on the US dollar also, and it had the sterling up about 0.66% here this morning on that news. So that was another thing I saw. We'll definitely be talking to Mr. Flanagan about that. Yeah, energy, everything's up, Ron, today. Energy, we've seen a big move up on too, especially in the nuclear, all of it, but nuclear was moving up. I saw Vistra, CEG, all these are moving up. It's pretty much, the market wants to run in general today so far. We'll see if it can hold this up through the open and continue. It's been a while since the bulls have controlled the day, right? They really haven't. Trying to see. I mean, we had a couple of days. We really haven't seen much growth since this, the 2nd through the 6th here. Yeah, absolutely. Oil, definitely keep an eye there on that in the Trump announcement. Yeah, absolutely. We know that he's pro gas. The one thing I was trying to figure out is like I said, is why WTI is going up today, and almost twice as much as Brent. I didn't really see anything about Texas. And in fact, that Trump news should help us. So I was a little surprised by that. Going to try to get some more data there to figure that out there, Paul. Thanks for that comment. And again, yeah, all 11 sectors moving up. The only real laggard really isn't. I mean, the worst the sector is doing is your consumer staples, your healthcare, which had been running until yesterday, and then a little bit in the energy sector is up about a half a point. So, a little bit of a laggards there versus the market in general, but it does look like we want to run. We had the perfect storm, right? We had banks all come in with great earnings, and we'll go a little further through some of those earnings this morning. And then you followed that with, decent or right at expectation economic data. So we've seen it. The question will be, do we see it to continue? Some of the numbers we saw by some of the banks were really fantastic. So we'll get into that right now. We look at Goldman Sachs here. They had, an EPS beat of $11.95 versus $8.22 estimate, and a beat to the top side revenue there. And, it roughly doubled their profit from a year ago. 4.11 billion, was their profit during Q4. And their CEO said, with an improving operating backdrop and growing CEO confidence, we are harnessing the power of One Goldman Sachs to continue to serve their clients with excellence and create further. Oh, I'm reading the wrong one. That's David Solomon's comment. Sorry, that's on Goldman Sachs and why they were up. I combined two of my articles here. And again, JP Morgan had a big move to the upside. That sold off a little bit here. I don't know that I'd be chasing banks today personally. JP Morgan pretty close to its all-time high. Tough to really chase there. Wells Fargo, well, that won't be the case, coming right up on the 50-day. Actually, it is close. All these moves are bringing everything close to all-time highs there. So it does become a little hard. I don't know that we have the strength to have continuation to all-time highs here. So that does make me a little wary as we head into the market here today. We are 2 minutes from open. Tick still staying positive here at 307. Advanced decline even moved up more to 37.43. So we are looking to open strong so far. Let's take a look and see what are the laggards so far in the pre-market. News Corp down about 4.31. Hologic, Motorola, Northrop Grumman, UHI. Again, we talked about some of the healthcare companies are getting it today. Marathon Petroleum down 0.26. So, Paul, if you were looking for someone that's maybe a laggard there, could be Marathon. Phillips 66 too. So you do have a few of the gas and oil companies still there that are laggards so far today. I would definitely want to do more research, look at their charts a little more there. I traded Marathon a lot during COVID and did very well with it. I haven't traded it a lot lately. Looking at the chart here, if it breaks 150, 153, I'd like it to the upside here. It's going to have to break this resistance right around here. 153.31 maybe. Makes a move through there. You definitely got room. This could try to make a run towards its 200-day MA, or at least to 161 at that point. Don't mind that at all. MPC could be a good one there for if you think that we'll get some more love out of oil today. Looking at Phillips 66, another one. Again, just looking at technical analysis on this, not anything on the fundamental side. And there we go. We're open. That just gapped up nicely down the open there. So maybe you need to be a little quick there. I wonder if we saw the same sort of gap up by MPC here. No, not really. First move there to the downside. So you could get a chance here, MPC. Again, I'd want to see a little conviction out of it first. But we are open up to the outside. Now we do see the big loser as we start to open up. UHI down about 7% of a percentage point. Discover down a little bit here this morning. Brown & Brown, Philip Morris, Cognizant. Let's look quickly to see what we've got on the other side of that. I got to switch this over to this side. And you guys can, let's move this to a different screen too. And let's get the screen a little bigger so you guys can see what I'm looking at there. Okay. So again, now Builders First up 8%, KKR up 5.56. Did KKR have earnings today? I don't believe so. No, KKR, as we know, private equity company, but a nice pump up there on them. Wells Fargo up 5.55% right now. BlackRock up 5.28%. So again, we're seeing, I will say though, the first move on all of these has been a little bit of a sell-off on the 830 mark here. So let's take another look at the tick and what's going on advanced decline-wise. Tick is still positive, 437, so it is positive. Advanced decline now up at 57.37, so nice move to the upside there. VIX continuing to fall, 17.14 here. QQQ up about 1.65. First moves, not really seeing a huge move one way or other here on the 3-minute chart. You know, it took the big jump up at 8:30, as we know. It's pretty much trying to, now again, what I want to see here is a continuation trade on QQQ. If we can break 514.86, I'd be interested to the upside. Did just bounce off of VWAP here, you can see on the 3-minute chart. So those of you that are scalping here on the QQQ, so far those would be the levels I'm looking at here. A break above 514.86 for continuation play, and you're looking at key support at 512.35, which is your VWAP on a 3-minute chart so far. So that's what I would be looking at personally. Let's keep our eye on the SPY here, up about 1.49, and again another one that looks like it's trying to make a continuation run here. Would need to break above 591.81 for that to happen. Any break above that looks like we could start to see a nice continuation to the upside. Tick is still staying positive, about 361. Bitcoin regaining 99,000 here. Again, on this one, you need to break. Let's look. This one I more want to see it on the hourly chart. Got to break 99,450, it looks like here, to see a continuation sort of play in there. As I mentioned, I am looking and do have some sell orders in on a trailing stop here on my Bitcoin purchase that I made down at 94. Gold's not able to hold above 2,700, so that still seems to be the key resistance here on gold, 2,700. Got to 26.96 today, but wasn't able to do it. So that definitely seems to be the one that is the area of trouble there. We mentioned silver did break back across $30 today, so it's good to see that. Hasn't been able to hold above the 50-day MA there, so we'll see if it can get above that and hold above that. We need to see that there for that to try to make any kind of continuation play. Brent is now approaching $80 again. We had broken below that after the CPI data came out. Do want to take a quick look here. DXY 108.70. So that is stabilizing in this area. You can see a triple bottom on that 3-minute chart here. So looks like we are starting to see a stabilizing force at 108.6 come in for the DXY. You know, UNH was moving to the downside here. Let's see what it's doing now. UNH continuing to slide here down about 1.46%. They do have earnings, I believe Thursday they're going to come out. It will be interesting to see what they have to say in general and what they discuss about the former insurance chief, Brian Thompson, who we know was murdered last week or last month there. So be interesting to see what we get out of that. Visa, which had a nice day yesterday, having another nice day here, gapping up again, now at 314.70. We have seen a couple of companies give upgrades there. We saw Citigroup raise its price target to 354 from 326. So nice move up here by Visa on that news. MasterCard was moving down yesterday on that news. Let's see what it's doing today. It is moving up a little bit here today, so it is getting a little sympathy play with it too today. moving to the upside. We'll say banks are seeing a little bit of a sell-off here. So it looks like we've got some profit taking again. I can't blame someone. You know, if you were in Wells Fargo, you're up 4 or 5%, taking a little profit. But we can see last 15 minutes since the open, they are moving to the downside slightly. JP Morgan looks like it wants to come back towards neutral even. Did bounce down to actually neutral before getting a little bit of a bounce back to the upside here. Take a look at what's pumping in general. You now see Edison International when it comes in. What I'm looking at here is only on the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ 100 on the screener right now. The big winner, Edison International, up 6.85 so far. And again, we see a analyst upgrade from 56.50 to 61 here. It's trading at 62.37. So it's already surpassed what the analyst the new analyst raise was there. So we'll see what's happening here. I talked a little bit about TikTok. We'll see what happens there. You do have to mention it. We don't use TikTok at Quasar Market, so it doesn't really affect our streams anywhere. But they have come out and said that they will be shutting it down on Sunday. They're not going to try to do anything to circumvent it or to have it. They're just going to shut the site down. So it does look like we're going to play a little bit of chicken here between the SEC, FTC, DOJ, and TikTok. So we'll see what happens here as that keeps going. And as we do look here, natural gas continuing to move to the upside around 416 now. Bro, was down around 411 again before the CPI data. And we continue to see a cool off on treasuries here. So again, treasuries continuing to slide down 487. We were challenging 5 yesterday on the 30-year. The 10-year here, we were challenging 4.8 yesterday. Now we're down at 4.66. So that is definitely good to see. Also part of what could be draining on some of the banks here. Bank stocks, they like higher interest rates. There you go. Paul, absolutely. GS is up on volume. Gotta love Investors Business Daily. Nothing wrong with that company at all. Big fan. I am a member myself, so I like it as well. And I got to like everything that David Solomon said as you say that about Goldman Sachs, everything that he had to say. And I do have, let me pull up my article there on that. What's going on? Kikiuk, I don't want to say your name wrong there. Kikiuk Maximus. Hope everything's going well today. And feel free to join the comments. I do take a look at them. I will answer if there's any stock you want me to take a look at the charts on or anything. Let me know, and I will take a look for sure there. Let me pull up my article here on Goldman Sachs. I wanted to discuss a little bit. And what we see here again is they reported earnings of 11.95 a share versus an estimate of about 822. So blasted through those estimates. And they roughly double profits from earlier, 4.11 billion. Equities trading generated 3.45 billion in revenue. We're seeing that across a lot of the banks. JP Morgan mentioned that too. Their securities business sort of led their gains. We're seeing that still here. Traders are trading. We definitely know that is the case. I was looking for what David Solomon had said. And he just talked more about his high wealth customers that they're continuing, that's where the focus is. That's what I'm watching too. As we know, BlackRock, I didn't see Larry Fink any news on that, but BlackRock we know has just made, well, he did a little bit. when he was on CNBC this morning, he mentioned that they had 3 companies they wanted to buy last year to get even stronger in the private market area, and that they purchased all 3. He didn't have anything on his plate, so to speak, to buy now. He said he was happy where they are, but we mentioned here a long time ago that when they purchased that private equity company looking to get into private lending, it was a big deal. They're not even in that market, and when it comes to private lending now, they are, and for me, that is going to be a huge driver for their business. That's definitely what my takeaway from BlackRock is, that their move into the into the private lending business and the private market business is just going to continue to increase. And if they dominate that sector the way they dominate the hedge fund sector, just to imagine what it is. I want to say it was $11 trillion was the number that talked about under management there. It's just crazy how much money they are managing for people. And again, I don't like the way the chart looks on a daily chart, though. You can see here they're at a tough spot. This is no man's land for me, so I'd have to wait to see a move. I didn't want to see a move over the 50-day MA here for maybe a buy or a move back towards 969. I would have loved it if I bought some yesterday. I did not, so I will hold off here and see what comes from that on BlackRock. MicroStrategy doing pretty well on its recovery here. Yesterday, I talked about that 348.80 level, which was the 50-day MA. They did break through it. It has held overnight and so far today above that 50-day MA. I do like that from MicroStrategy here. So one that is in play here for an upside move. Looking forward for a move up to 381 or so, especially if Bitcoin can get a little bit of love and running here today. I'll definitely be interested in that. Seeing CBRE Group get a big move up. They had really moved down on the wildfire news last week or so, and they are moving up today. So CBRE, a real estate company. Part of that looks like is because they were raised to overweight from equal weight by Morgan Stanley. They adjusted their price target from 160 from 115. Wow. So you can see why they're moving up 546 on the analyst beat there. I'll look here, see if there's anything else kitten. Did see U.S. government has announced, this is from Walter Bloomberg, it says the 120,000 Bitcoin that was stolen in the 2016 hack should be returned to Bitfinex. That's interesting. That's in a filing. So if you don't know, one of the reasons that we have the second largest wallet, the U.S. government has the second largest Bitcoin wallet in existence, is from the is part of this is that 120,000 Bitcoin that was stolen in the Bitfinex hack. Most of it came from Silk Road, though, so that is not going anywhere. Interesting that came out. That would be pretty interesting. Also seeing that the U.S. strengthened restrictions on advanced computing semiconductors to prevent diversion to China. The Commerce Department just announced that. Let's see if that has anything to do, doing anything to the chip sector. Does not look to be hurting the chip sector at all. NVIDIA here up 1.4%. Let's continuing to see that rise. Tick is coming closer to neutral here. Advanced decline approaching 5,900, just broke 5,900 here. So, again, we continuing to see a move up here. 514.13 now on QQQ, and it just did break above the 50-day MA there here. So, as I said, you could see a move up. It's trying to break to that new time high. could get a continuation here. I mean, new daily high. Any break above that 514.34 would be a good spot for a continuation trade here. I also like it on a retest of VWAP, as I mentioned. RUT, we talked about it. RUT is one that I liked very much. Talked about it, last week after the drop. Nice little move up here, about 2.18% today. It is struggling to continue this increase, though. It looks like everything's starting to get a little bit worn down here. We'll see if we can see some continuation. We've made it through the first 15 minutes pretty strong here across all of the indices. We're up 1.82% on the NASDAQ now, trying to break. Here it goes. It is trying to break to an all-time, not an all-time high, a daily high here. If it can, I think we continue to see a green day across the board here. Does look like we are trying to see that move. See what are the laggards here so far this morning. Elephant's Hill. Lululemon getting hit here, down about 1.35. The losers aren't losing too much, though. Today, Kroger's down about 0.9%. Molina Healthcare, Cigna Group, so healthcare, AbbVie, all healthcare, Elevance Health, UNH, all getting hit here. So it does look like they are down. Some drug companies down, Abbott Laboratories, McKesson Corporation also. It does look like those gas companies all did, as you said, Paul, all those laggards, they just jumped up. So MPC, which we know was down, one of the bigger laggards, now up 1.37%. Nice little move to the upside here. There you got to watch out at that 153.31, like I said. Same thing, Phillips. Up 1.04% here. That one's struggling a little bit more still, though. Devon Energy was a big winner when I looked earlier this morning. Let's see how that's doing here. Pulling back a little bit from this morning. They had been a pretty good winner. Still up 1%. QQQ trying to go up 2% here. Bitcoin holding above 99 here nicely, holding above 99K. Ethereum back at 3,300. Tesla leading the Mag 7 up 4% here at 412 mark. I did not look this morning to see what Chinese stocks are doing. Baba up again a little bit here. There's Baidu. So they're sort of laggards there. They're still up, it looks like, most of the Chinese stocks. JD up another 1.67%. So again, we've seen a climb the last 3 or 4 days on these Chinese stocks. Tick now back up 445. Mr. Flanagan, we're going to have you on. Come on in whenever you're ready, buddy. We'll get you on here and talk about it. There is, it's the herd mentality. You've talked about this. Everybody was fishing on one side of the boat. Someone went over the other side, caught a fish, and now everyone's following along. We definitely see it. They're piling in here. It is crazy to watch. We're now up 2% on the NASDAQ. So we got a new daily high, 515.20 here, high of the day. So they are continuing to move to the upside. Dow Jones up 1.66%. Look at the VIX here, down at 1666, right? I said it yesterday that you could look to sell the VIX, right? Good time. Now I'll look when it gets back down towards that, 14, 13 area is usually the time that you buy that VIX insurance. Buy it when you can, not when you need it. Bitcoin back below 99. So we do see, I think we are starting to tire out here after a good 20-minute run. But man, advanced decline wants to break 6,000. Love to see that. Again, QQQ couldn't hold above that 515, back below it. So it definitely is getting hit there. WTI and Brent continuing to rise. So oil continuing to rise here. What are rates continuing to drop? Let's take a look there. Yeah, rates are really continuing to drop here. 10-year now 4.655 down 2.9%. Wow. Let's see if any of the Spider Select funds are moving to the downside. Nope, still all 11 to the upside. European stock market up 1.21% today. Again, they had a little bit of a good news out of England. Well, it does. I mean, it does, but stocks up 1.2%. We see the Shanghai Composite down 0.43% and the Nikkei down 0.06. We'll say Steve, our man Big Beat's going to have some videos for me. He was at the Japanese Nikkei Stock Exchange today. Got some great videos there. We'll be posting up on our social media over the next days here. Cool stuff to see there. Bitcoin moving up here, 99,225 here. Let's see what's happening with the rest of the crypto. Wow, Ripple 286. Like I said, I'd be selling to this pressure heading up to 290. That's going to be your strong resistance there, 290. Solana, I liked for a continuation to the play to the upside. It is moving back up here slightly, 194.91. Nice move up by Cardano. This is one, again, you got to be careful, though. It struggles to get above 110 here. We got to break that 110 area on Cardano to see it move back up towards 130 or so. But so far, continuation play is still working. Mag 7. NVIDIA sort of wearing out, though. Doesn't look like it can get back up here. Now back below 134. Had broken above it slightly this morning. Apple getting a nice little run here, up 1.9%, moving to the upside. So again, a little bit of a run here from Apple. Microsoft up 2.24%, like we talked about. They big news there was their Quantum Ready program release yesterday that they did. And that has quantum stocks and their stuff moving up. Banks also moving up tremendously today. The market, Tesla now only up about a little under 4%. So it had made a move up here trying to break even higher. Move got rejected on its first and second attempts there. So let's watch Tesla here. Any kind of break down. Still looks like the market still looks like it got some strength. Tick is up 208 here still. Can't break 6,000 exactly on the advanced decline, but we are running close there. QQQ, again, we seem to be gapping up at that 2%. We can't seem to break through the 2% move there. Let's increase our pumpers here to include the NASDAQ component. Let's see. Got to run on Quantum Corp running here. It looks like Quantum Corp, QMCO. Looks like a runner today. As I talked about, these quantum computing names all trying to run here. This one looks interesting. Could try for some continuation here. $31.75. What's its volume look like? Hold it 1 second here. Volume's pretty heavy, 1.35 million compared to normal daily volume, 3.53. So this is definitely one that's in play here. Keep an eye. Someone looking to chase a runner here. QMCO looks like it's primed to run here. Let's see what the other pumpers look like here. BioKey I never catch right. BKYI. It's one of those perennial mini pumpers here, but that looks like a little bit of a double top here. This would be one I'd be looking to fade right now more than buy. Vision Marine. Definitely the way that looks. Quantum we talked about. QUBT also running here. QUBT, one of the ones we talked about earlier this morning in that quantum computing. LAES, you guys know Seals Q is one that I love as a micro pumper. We've played this a few times here on the air that I've got into trades on it. Can't really do that today while I'm on the road. It's a little tough with my setup. I do see that we got Mr. Flanagan entering the room here, so a little bit early. We're going to bring him in, add him to the stage. Stephen Flanagan, how are you doing today, my friend?
Good morning, Howard. An active trading day, huh? Big shocker.
Yeah, it is. It is. And as you talked about, money moves first, and it definitely did right at that. It actually moved about 3 minutes before the announcement came out for CPI. So I want to know who's getting that inside information, because about 3 minutes before we saw those big moves one way or the other. It's just surprising. Were you surprised by the reaction, considering that the economic data was a standstill?
Well, Howard, you know that I've been basically saying, where are the central banks going to recognize? Stop being reactive to a 0.1 increase. Inflation is coming down. China is in deflation. Japan has fought deflation for 30 years. This is all, a figment of their imagination, and is my estimate in this 2% guideline. So I'm not surprised when I see all the headlines. Inflation unexpectedly eases in the United States and the UK today. What this is a pause in the king dollar scenario.
And it's and that's what we saw right away. We saw,
that's right.
You saw that right away.
And it's a good thing, because one-way moves are not good, because when they correct, they're very violent in their correction. So, overall, PPI 0.2 yesterday, CPI 0.4, core a lot lower, 0.2. If we're going to use their terminology, a lot lower at 0.2. So, inflation is beginning to ease. And I think we have to get away from this microcosm view and start looking at the bigger picture. And when I say bigger picture, currency land, we look out and we look at the world. Eurozone IP headlines, it was slightly higher, or it held ground at a plus 0.2. Year on year, it was minus 1.9%.
Right.
So we're still cratering in the Eurozone. So I'm not surprised at all. Dollar index retraces back here. I think we're around the 108.65 level now. I see very good support for dollar index in around the 107.5 level. I would hope that we get back down there, because this does not affect my king dollar thesis here at all. I'm looking to buy the dip in the dollar. I have been looking to buy the dip in our equity markets, because it's green lights ahead. We just need to get through this interim period of what's Trump's tariffs going to do? Is inflation going to pick up? Et cetera, et cetera. So this is a good correction.
Right. It's a healthy correction. I did see Japan, their 10-year right came in at the high since 2011 or so. 1.255%. I saw highest level since 2011. So, must be nice, right? Highest since 2011 at 1.255. I'd like that in our 10-year, please.
And Steve is in the land. So,
absolutely.
Let's watch for major changes. But as Steve knows, I am a very large supporter of the yen. I love the dollar yen lower. And I'll tell you the reason. Now you've got Bank of Japan, Ueda, coming out and saying, I heard in recent meetings about positive news on the wage front as we look forward into this year. Now, a critical area, remember, to our audience, the Japanese interest rates are 0.25%. That's right. 0.25. They moved from 0 to 0.25 while the rest of the world was into this massive tightening. So
Yep.
Japan is looking for a normalization after a 25-year fight of deflation. You've got the finance minister coming out today reiterating that he is alarmed over those FX moves. Now, if you have your dollar yen chart up, we've
Yep.
highlighted the tops in the daily, and that this is a ripe period for Japan to act. Now you've got the chairman coming out and warning of another. If you go all the way back, you can see what that last round of intervention did. And now we've got these tops. And Bank of Japan kicks off next week with the January 24th meeting.
Right. That's what you've been talking about. So do you think are we looking for a move back down?
I think that we can see a surprise move on the Bank of Japan part. And I think you could easily see this dollar yen moving back into my target range of a 143 to 145. My first area of support from here is about a 153.20. And then I think you could, because dollar yen, if you begin to open up a chart to, say a monthly, you begin to see dollar yen loves to trade in consistent ranges. And I would view the Japanese interest in a consistent range because they follow their currency like hawks. And I would view, you can see, look at that protracted period of time where dollar yen was in a very defined top. Now, the only reason dollar yen broke out was when interest rate correlations in the world completely broke down and favored the US dollar.
Yeah.
So I do think that the yen is a great play. I think the Japanese stock market, I think following very closely to the U.S. So that was my 1-2 order that I've been telling you about, U.S., Japan. And then I'm starting to watch China carefully because I think that China, seeing the fears of deflation, are beginning to get more serious in their actions. We've had 2 moves from the Chinese. I'm expecting a very large third move coming up shortly.
And you're starting to see that, in my opinion, on the market too, that I think some big money is moving in there, because I've noticed that BABA, JD, all of these in the last 3 days, 4 days, they're all moving up, but not in that spike that we normally see when a stimulus does hit. It looks like somebody is accumulating some of these names. They've been pretty beaten down, so it does make sense. But when I looked at BABA, Baidu here, all pretty much the same thing, bottomed out around the 13th, and now all of them sort of moving up this week again, after the weekend when they did announce, when he did speak, and they did have some stuff there. So I am interested. I do think it looks like it's ready to make a bigger move to the upside here on a lot of these.
I concur with you, and throw the politics out, okay? But Trump is a builder, and he's a builder of relationships. And we've talked about how he's using tariffs as the stick in order to get concessions. You don't need to read very much out there to see that the administration and his cabinet picks are all very focused on China. So I am looking at a point in time where watch President Xi come. Look, it benefits everyone in the world to have a peaceful process. And this wartime footing that we always seem to be in for the last 3+ years is got to stop. If we can move into a more peaceful situation in the world where people sit, argue, throw their differences out, but come to solutions,
right?
And this is a very positive investment opportunity worldwide. U.S. leads. I say Japan second. I'll watch China third. Then I'm going to slip in with India. And then I'll move in, maybe if I have to get my arm twisted, into the European and UK avenue. But those two are laggers. If we jump into the UK, the House of Commons is summoning the Treasury Department to explain why the gilt, the 10-year, like our 10-year bond, their 10-year gilt, why the rates are so high. And I want to emphasize to our viewers, the reason this is such catastrophic news for the British economy is because their mortgage rates typically are 2 to 5 years. So let's take it at the far end, 5 years. In 2020, people had their rates negotiated when interest rates were pretty much zero throughout the world.
Right.
And here we are 5 years later, and now they have to be redone at the current rate.
Wow.
Now, if our current rate, let's just take the US at 7% mortgage rate, could you imagine going from a 2.5%, 3% rate to suddenly a 7%? That's a huge bite out of the wallet.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. I'd have to do the math, the actual math, to give you what that would move it up. But I'd have to say that you're almost going to double your. I mean, you're doubling your interest payment. I mean, and that's the big part of your mortgage. Unfortunately, is paying that interest down. So that definitely is alarming. I didn't know that they had that system.
Yep, and so that's why the emphasis now on the UK is going to have to be on lower rates. They're going to have to play a catch up here. And, we've been talking about this. And now suddenly in the European theater, now you've got all these guys coming out and starting to echo. You got the vice president coming out saying the balance of risks have shifted from high inflation to growth. Now, unfortunately, the ECB has one mandate, and that's inflation. So
Right.
when they say it's growth, they really can't act because of a lower growth. But Vilroy, the vice guy, came out and said it makes sense that the interest rates reach 2% by the summer. Now, presently, ECB is at 3%. So that's another 100 basis points lower.
That's a pretty big move.
Back to my king dollar. This is why the dollar you want to be looking. Again, this is just general. You want to watch currencies because I think that the dollar has a good base of support. And as the dollar goes, I think up, I think you're going to see this equity explosion in the US as well. But again, we're looking at a 1 to 3 month time frame for this to play out and then begin.
Right. And you can see the Dixie's raising up here again. Looks like it's going to erase all of the sort of drop that it took down on the news. So again, you've talked about this a lot, these, expanded moves to one side that immediately, start to get reconfigured.
Yes. And this is the automated computerized world we trade in. Everything must react to a new data point. A new data point comes in and all the weightings suddenly go up in the air. And then the computer model finds what it needs to do. And, okay, does that sound a little abstract? No, I'm sure I'm trying to explain it in a simple fashion. Right. But every single model is plugged in via an API to automated trading in all markets. So when the new data point comes in, bam, out go all the orders. And
right. And to just expand on that a little for our view is what he's saying is, when a data point hits in the US, it doesn't matter if it's in the US, if it's in India, if it's in Europe, if it's in Asia, the way that these big institutional traders like a JP Morgan would be, that's signaling to them to do things in every single market. It isn't just a reaction that, okay, the CPI was better, so I'm buying US equities. It's better, so I'm buying US equities and I'm selling the yen and I'm buying the sterling and I'm doing this in this market, right? That's what you're pointing to.
That's exactly what I'm pointing to. And, for our viewers, should that affect things? Well, when a money manager is managing trillions, and when collectively a dozen of these managers now are in the double figures of trillions, yes, it does make a difference, especially when a model and everybody in the world is leaning to one side, such as today, inflation. And then the number comes out, and look at your headlines to prove a point. Inflation unexpectedly eases. Come on. It's by 0.1.
Yeah, I mean it's funny how we choose the core is going to be what they're using as their headline data, not the overall CPI, because that's what worked in their favor.
Yep. And the worst part about it all is this is from December. We hit the halfway point in January,
Doesn't
and I'm
matter.
a very strong proponent. If you're going to drive a car, look forward. Don't be looking in your
You don't use
rearview
your
mirror.
rearview mirror to drive the car forward.
That's right.
Yeah, it is crazy. When it comes to that, looking at rates though, it's funny. While the DXY is moving back up, rates are continuing to bottom out here. So we're seeing some definite still some weakness in the U.S. Treasuries here. 10 years down at 4.657. I was trying to look. I don't see. I mean, I guess first line of sort of support comes in this 4.62 area, but quite honestly, you got room right down to that 4.5 area.
Right. And again, with the backdrop of a global world and foreign exchange, if you've seen the ECB coming out today and talking about 2% by summertime, and you're looking across the ocean going, hey, I can get a 10-year close to 5%, of course, money is moving in. It doesn't.
Yeah.
And so what we're seeing here is the Dixie is a symbolism of where a composite of currencies. If you really want to understand the DXY, focus on the euro, which is 55% of the value of the DXY. And when you're looking at the euro, anywhere up in the 103, 104 and a half, 105 and a half is a massive sell zone in this type of environment looking forward. So, of course, I would expect the DXY to bounce. I would love to see it down to 107 and a half. Most likely, though, why are you going to sell the dollar? Give me a reason other than perhaps political uncertainty in the U.S. ahead of next week's swearing in, and what are going to be the executive actions that are done on day one. Outside of that uncertainty, I don't see a reason to be going short the dollar. Taking profit,
No.
yes.
And the other part is what we're not seeing is while Bitcoin's having a nice run up today, it's sort of it's struggling to break that 100 level every time it gets there, and gold can't hold above 2,700, and silver can't really break 30 and hold. So we're seeing it not. That's what's been surprising too. That's showing me the strength of the dollar. There hasn't been a flight to safety, over the last couple of weeks where you might have expected it, especially when VIX went up to 22, 23. There's uncertainty, everything, the volatility. That's been a little bit of a surprise for me. Is it a surprise for you? And I know, and I mean all of them, gold, silver, and Bitcoin.
Yes, and Howard, you are nailing it right there for the viewers. Why I say money moves first. Why you should always have a currency on your screen, no matter what instrument you're trading. But you've just nailed the correlated view. Why aren't other things moving? Because why is Bitcoin suddenly topping out? Why are the dollar index? Why did it suddenly? And yes, this is a pause or a profit take. And I think that that's the word we need to look at. People, large institutional people, are taking profits and
Right.
taking a wait and see. Patience is what rewards the best investor. And I think people are beginning to take patience, settle down. Let me see what this landscape looks like. It fits very well with my thesis that I'm looking for this 1 to 3 month period of some extra volatility of up and down type moves. But
It's funny you mentioned that. I saw someone who was following your thing today. I actually wrote a little note so I'd have it here for us. BITG's technical analysis guru, so a guy like ourselves that likes to look at the charts. Jonathan Krinsky says he's looking for the SPY to revisit 200-day MA. And he said, look for a spike here, look for it to go up still. He's not saying today, and that I love it when I see an analyst who isn't saying, banging the drum that tomorrow is what this is going to happen, and sort of lays out, this is the pattern I'm seeing. And he did a nice job, I thought, of saying, hey, look for us to approach this 599, even 600 level. But then look for, a significant pullback towards this 557 level, this 200-day MA. We've spent, a ridiculous amount of time above that level, here. You got to go back to monthly to even start to see where you come back towards it. But we don't break under it very often, but we like to ride it for a while, it looks like. So I do think he's got a pretty good view there. I think we could see that kind of move before we see the next, big leg up from the markets.
Well, while I agree with the pause, and a pause is profit taking, and so therefore we should be looking for where support comes in. I'm not looking for a breakaway on the upside, provided the environment of news stays as it is. I wouldn't go on such a deep type of dip. And I'll tell you why. Outside of my currency world, I do take a macro type of view because that's the thing that currencies give us. I do look at how the subject matter, if you read AI, suddenly NVIDIA, oh, well, AI is no longer going, that the earnings are coming down, and we don't expect AI to have the punch anymore like it's had. Okay, but look how quick that the subject is now talking about data centers. Now, we've been talking about this 3 months, but you've got Dubai coming in with $20 billion suddenly into a data center. You've got US talk of data centers. You've got all these people talking about nuclear in data. But you see how the trickle out of AI is now beginning to permeate back down. So I would say, and not look for such a deep correction, because I think the next level of investment is going to rapidly hit, in that 2 to 3 month period. And that's going to be data centers. How do we power this? Who supplies the power? Who are the architects in this power?
Right? No, without a doubt. Yeah. I mean, personally, for me, you can see where I've set up. I think that our support level is in this area here between 575 and 585 is where I'd personally be a buyer of the SPY myself. And I don't know, what could also happen is, remember, that 200-day MA is going to change every day. So by the time it plays out his thing, is that 200-day MA sitting at 575, as opposed to where it is now at that 556, because,
the most important message I would come from a currency point of view is keep your powder dry. And that means you want to make sure that you've got the ability to step into a market when it goes into one of these sell-offs for whatever headline hits, because we know what we've been talking, how quickly markets will react to a new ingredient in a weighting that goes into the model. And so you want to keep your powder dry, which means you want to be prepared and have patience so that you can step in on these exaggerated computer moves, because a computer doesn't know where to stop. A computer simply says, I have to sell. And it's going to keep going into the market and executing until the command is complete.
Right. No, that's exactly it. Is take advantage of these dips. That, like I've talked about, I like to buy those Chinese stocks or a composite of them whenever they get beaten down. I've been saying it. I'd be selling my quantum today. It's up, nicely because of the Microsoft news. I'd be selling into that news and looking to buy back it down when it does what it's going to do next, which is just return a little bit. Those companies have negative EPS. They're not making much. They don't have much revenue yet. Jensen Huang wasn't wrong when the NVIDIA CEO said, we are still, it might not be 15 years like he said, but we are still, a ways away. I'll compare it to the space, industry, right? Or the cannabis industry 3 or 4 years ago. Very speculative. There wasn't a lot of revenue to back up the numbers. So what you want to do is, on good news, you want to sell into that good news and then buy back on those dips.
Well, I honestly was a little surprised at the market reaction to his comments about quantum computing. But then again, we must understand he has a vested interest to kind of push it out as far as possible.
Oh, yeah.
All his products right now are geared for today's environment, not the quantum world that's coming. But But I want to just make sure I leave the viewers with, outside of all this gobbledygook of currency talks and global and macro, watch the dollar mix. That's the one I've been highlighting to you. It's at roughly 2045 today. We talked about a close to 2088 break could be a very decisive king dollar scenario break. It didn't happen, and I'm not looking for it to happen today, but it is a 10% yielding currency. So look as the inflation picture suddenly changed in the last few hours, and look at dollar mex, because everybody says, well, if rates suddenly top out in the US, well, boom, let me jump into a high interest rate currency, the dollar mex. So I am looking here roughly to trade maybe back down to 20.05. If that were to break, you could see a low down to 1920. And the top side, we want to keep in mind 20.88. That's a significant break. If the dollar mex breaks that level up there, that's going to be the tectonic plates under the market, because so much of the world money that moves is in the mex at 10%. Because
Right.
at times, the dollar mex, one may not agree, but the dollar mex can be the second or third most active currency traded in the North American markets. So
Oh, wow.
a lot of money moves into that. Keep that one in mind. That's also a good indicator of what you can expect.
Absolutely, Ron. I see you saw that there on USD MXN to follow that ticker. Mr. Flanagan, thank you like always. We will see you. I'll be back at the home office on Friday, so we'll be a little bit clearer for everybody. But thank you so much. And like you always say, money moves first.
Thanks, Howard. And make sure you get some of that Boston lager.
I will.